live. I am James Cousineau coming to you from JESS FM and JESS TV. Tonight we will be taking a look at the headlines both locally, nationally, and globally. In addition, we are going to take a look at Movember. Where did this movement start and what exactly is Movember? Well, we do know that it is all about men's health, raising awareness and trying to remove some of the barriers that men create themselves that prevent them from early detection of cancer, as well as dealing with other men's health issues, including mental health. And we'll take a look at that and where the campaign is heading in the show this evening. And we'll also take a look at why it is that men tend to be a lot more stubborn than their female counterparts when it comes to screening and early intervention to see doctors. Yes, we are stubborn and we know it, but is it costing us our health? We'll explore that as well as the show goes on. Tonight, we are going to take a start with, of course, our local stories here in Lethbridge. And then we'll move on throughout the other stories and then on to our big deep dive into Movember. With that said, folks, I'd also like to acknowledge our sponsor this week once again is Carry Movers Limited. For all of your long distance moving requirements throughout Western Canada and the Northern Territories, you can contact Carry Movers through their website at www.karymovers.com. Yes, that is karymovers.com for all of your moving services. They also provide local moving and relocation services in the Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley areas. Now, you'll notice that I'll be looking back and forth tonight, and that's because we've got one monitor issue in front of me, so I'll be looking at the chats and other comments as well as our layout on this screen to my left. So I apologize if that throws you off a little, but let's get started. We're going to begin tonight with the Southern Alberta region, where the city of Lethbridge, yes, they are navigating a period of profound economic and civil change. Two stories are defining this city this week, and that's a new path for justice as well as a higher price tag for just getting by, something that is not good news for all of us. Now, this week in Courtroom 7 in Lethbridge, it was officially transformed. It has reopened as the Lethbridge Indigenous Court. Now, this is a part of Alberta's Court of Justice Indigenous Justice Strategy, and that is with the new court aiming to move beyond punitive measures, providing a culturally relevant and restorative as well as holistic system of justice. The goal is to address the impacts on Indigenous offenders, victims, and the entire community affected by the actions of said offenders. Now, as the city overhauls its justice system, its residents are grappling with a harsh new economic reality, and that is according to a report that was released this week by Alberta Living Wage Network. They are also known as the ALWN, and they pegged the 2025 living wage for Lethbridge at $22.30 an hour. That is slightly higher in other parts of Alberta, including Calgary, where it's up just over $25 an hour. That is a staggering 11.5% increase over last year when we're looking just at Lethbridge. Now, the ALWN defines that wage not as the minimum to survive, but the hourly amount needed to cover basic expenses and, quote, participate in the community. For local businesses that are already certified as living wage employers like AirTech Heating and Air Conditioning, the President Dwayne Hubbard says it is a crucial step to support employees who, quote, often struggle just to make ends meet. Now, that economic pressure of $22.30 an hour is reality, and it forms the immediate backdrop for other major transition in the city, and that is the new government. Following the October municipal election, the new Lethbridge City Council was officially sworn in. Mayor-elect Blaine Hagen and the new council, Belinda Krausen, Jen Schmidt-Rempel, Rajko Donik, and others held their first organizational meeting this month. They sent the council calendar for 2026 and appointed Councillor Krausen as acting mayor and Councillor Schmidt-Rempel as deputy mayor. Their first major act is ratifying a new 2-year collective agreement with the Amalgamated Transit Union Local 987. This is a big step forward, and as the city's administrative machinery gets back to work, so too does its enforcement. The Lethbridge Police announced this week that after a month-long pause due to the recent postal strike, during which tickets were actually being hand-delivered, the mailing of automated traffic enforcement or photo radar tickets will officially resume, not to the happiness of most people who receive those little gifts in the mail from the Lethbridge Police Service. Now, from pressures facing a single city, we turn to the pressures facing the nation. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney's minority government survived 2 confidence votes on its new federal budget. It is a budget that signals a profound and aggressive new direction for the Canadian economy. The plan is titled Budget 2025, Canada Strong. Now, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne calls it a generational investment, one designed to, quote, transform our economy. The core mission, of course, is to make Canada stronger, more self-sufficient, and resilient to global shocks. The strategy is built on 2 multi-billion-dollar pillars. First, the Buy Canadian policy, and the budget earmarks nearly $186 million to implement this policy across all federal departments, agencies, and Crown organizations. As we continue there, of course, we know that this is a big challenge, not only for Mark Carney and the government, but for all Canadians as we move forward in today's economic situation. Now, the goal, of course, as the government puts it, is to become our own best customer, using Canadian steel, aluminum, lumber, and technology to, quote, build Canada strong. Second, of course, nation-building projects. The Prime Minister has announced 2 tranches of projects fast-tracked by Major Projects Office. These initiatives represent a combined investment of over $116 billion. The focus is on unlocking Canadian resources like LNG, nuclear power, and critical minerals, with the aim, of course, to selling them to new non-U.S. markets. But this new nationalist doctrine did not emerge from a vacuum. It is a direct defensive response to Canadian economy that is, by many accounts, stuck in a ditch. Now, as we look at that, we can also look at the trade relationship and the status with our largest partner that has become openly hostile. The economic picture is grim. A recent Bank of Canada survey of market participants shows as 1 in 3 chance of Canada already in a technical recession. The Bank of Canada itself cut its key interest rate in late October. But in stark admission, Governor Tiff Macklem warned that monetary policy has its limits in this crisis. He stated that lowering interest rates, quote, can target specific sectors. It can't help companies find new markets. It can't help companies reconfigure their supply chains. So those supply chains are being hammered by U.S. tariffs, which are at the center of strained relations at the G7 summit and meeting of foreign ministers in Ontario this week. The new budget, with its nearly $80 billion non-pandemic deficit, is Ottawa's answer. It is a massive fiscal injection, precisely because the central bank has admitted it is powerless against these structural political shocks. Now, the government is, in effect, trying to buy its way to economic independence. This new focus on sovereignty is not just economic. This week, the director of CSIS, David Rogers, warned that China and Russia are actively spying on governments and businesses in Canada's Arctic. This geopolitical threat coincides with a major offer from Swedish manufacturer Saab. The company says 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa buys its Gripen fighter jets. This comes on the tails of a massive investment or order that is being considered by Ukraine and other nations, where, of course, if Canada also shifts, we'll see a big windfall from the manufacturing here in Canada. Now, Saab's CEO told CTV News that he was prepared for a full technology transfer to build the jets on Canadian soil, creating, in his words, what he calls sovereign capabilities. That language is no accident. It aligns perfectly with the Buy Canadian doctrine. Now, a sign that our national security and our new economic strategy are now one and the same. So again, big news. If Saab is to come to Canada, they are looking at partnering up with the large corporation Bombardier. So again, that is good news for Canada and made in Canada as far as it goes for our military spend. Now, internationally, let's take a look at the crisis at the BBC. It is a story that strikes at the very heart of journalism, trust, and global media. One of the world's most respected public broadcasters, the BBC is in a state of collapse tonight with its two top executives gone. This, of course, the BBC Director General, Tim Davie, and Head of News, Deborah Turnus, both resigned Sunday. The resignations were triggered by what the broadcaster's own chair called an error of judgment in a Panorama documentary that aired just before the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The program, titled Trump, A Second Chance, is, of course, one that investigated Donald Trump's speech on January 6th. Now, this week it was revealed that the program doctored that speech. It spliced together three separate quotes, delivered almost an hour apart. This, of course, was making it sound as though they were one single continuous statement. The edit created the impression of a direct call for violent action. Most critically, the edit removed a section of the speech where President Trump told his supporters to demonstrate peacefully. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The White House press secretary labeled the BBC's 100% fake news, and lawyers for President Trump sent a letter to the broadcaster demanding a retraction. Further to that, they are looking for an apology and compensation, threatening that if they fail on these points, then there will be legal action for a claim of $1 billion in damages. Now, this crisis, however, was not a bolt from the blue. The Panorama documentary appears to be the catalyst, but not the cause. Now, this crisis, it is at the helm of the BBC that was already under intense fire. The Daily Telegraph had just reported on a leaked internal memo from the former external advisor, Michael Prescott. That memo alleges serious and systemic problems of bias at the corporation, including, quote, effective censorship on controversial topics such as trans issues. Now, the doctored Panorama speech provided the hard evidence critics were looking for, making the leadership's position untenable. The resignations were not just about one error, they were a final admission of a systemic failure to uphold the BBC's own core global mandate of impartiality. And I would go even further to say that it looks very intentional, in my opinion. A mistake is when you put in the wrong date. An error is when you misspeak to a fact. But this seemed to be very intentionally edited to take the entire speech out of context in what they aired. This, of course, it creates a crisis of trust in the media that's unfolding against a backdrop of global instability, and that is increasing day by day. Moving on now, as G7 top diplomats meet in Niagara-on-the-Lake to discuss rising trade tensions and war, the conflicts themselves escalate. Reuters reports that Russia drones and missiles have once again hit the substation supplying power to Ukraine's nuclear plants. Meanwhile, conflicts in the Middle East, Sudan, and Myanmar continue to rage. The World Economic Forum notes that this surge has driven the number of active armed conflicts to its highest ever recorded level, displacing over 120 million people. This instability is strangling the global economy. The World Bank is forecasting a subdued global growth rate at just 2.3% for 2025, and while a tentative last-minute trade truce between the U.S. and China has provided some relief, markets remain on edge. The global economy, as one analyst put it, is limping, not in crisis, but in a precarious position. Now, let's take a look here, folks, as we look at the precarious position. The phrase also defines the global health crisis that's hiding in plain sight, one that's been allowed to fester in silence. When we return, we're going to begin our special report, and it starts with a mustache. But it's really about masculinity, mental health, and a revolutionary medical program that could change everything. But first, Primetime Live is proud to be presented and sponsored by Carry Movers Limited. Whether you are moving across the street or across the province, Carry Movers provides direct fleet moving services throughout British Columbia and Alberta. With the experienced crews and fully maintained and equipped moving trucks, they handle local, long distance, and commercial moves. Carry Movers claims that their goal is to gain your trust and ensure your peace of mind. You can find them online at www.karymovers.com. That's www.carrymovers.com. Now, welcome back here. This month, you have no doubt seen the mustache, as the Mo, as it's known, has become a familiar, often quirky symbol for November. But the Movember campaign is not a marketing gimmick. It is a distress signal for a global crisis that we are failing to address. The statistics are staggering. Globally, men are dying on average 4.5 years earlier than their female counterparts. Now, of course, the reasons for this gap are largely preventable. The Movember Foundation, which started in Australia in 2003, has taken on the three big health issues affecting men. Those are mental health, suicide prevention, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer. Now, on the first point, the numbers are a deafening roar across the world. One man dies by suicide every minute of every day. In Canada, the situation is just as dire. Men account for 75% of all suicides. This year, the Movember campaign is focused on what it calls the real face of men's health. The new battleground is not just disease, but isolation. A landmark report from the charity found that 50% of Irish adults, for example, believe young men are becoming increasingly isolated, with 62% saying they struggle to find purpose. Now, let's take a look at a promotional video that Movember is put out in partnership with a clothing line. And we'll take a look at that video, and we will discuss more of this information, awareness, and of course what men can do to take more control over their health, whether it is mental health or whether it is screening for different types of cancer and getting early treatment. Very important when it comes to these different issues in men's health.
Wait, how you doing, man? Just taking this run?
Yeah.
Let's get going. What's your plans tomorrow?
Tomorrow? Not much.
Hey, guys. Morning. How are you tonight?
Yeah, good.
Not too bad? Nah, I'm doing well, man. Nah, I'm really enjoying it. Wait, how good's this day, bro? Awesome.
Yeah.
But come on, lagging behind, bro. Keep up. Come on. I reckon we can go for a long one tomorrow. That'll be good. Hey, you remember that weekend we spent down there?
Yeah. It's such good fun.
It'll be fun. Oh, hey. See you, Jim. Beach is so nice, hey?
Yeah. It's good.
Wait, did you get that car you told me about?
Nah.
No? Dude, I've been having this smoothie at home. It is so nice, trust me. I need to make you one.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Same time tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah.
So as you can see, an excellent advertisement and promotional spot for the Movember Men's Health Awareness, especially when it comes to mental health and the silence that surrounds it, as well as the bias and stigmatism that comes with the talking out about it. Now, on that point, of course, it's a deafening roar across the world. And as I said, one man dies of suicide every minute of every day. Now, as we look, the challenge was captured perfectly in that viral video, a collaboration between Movember and the streetwear brand LSKD. It shows men running side by side, as you saw, and they are just very quiet, but just, a few words here and there. And this video has gone viral. Tens of millions of people have viewed it because it captures the hidden nature that so many men struggle with. As one Movember director said, it's about being there for your mates and noticing what's not being said. Now, the central question, of course, of what we're looking at tonight is what is not being said. Why are men dying younger? Why are they becoming more isolated? The answer, it turns out, is a complex and dangerous cocktail of fear, culture, and silence. And it's a silence that's costing them their lives. Now, it's the most cliche or most dangerous cliche in men's health that he just won't go to the doctor. It's often the punchline of a joke, but the data shows it's overwhelmingly true. In 2022, a U.S. survey found that 65% of men admit they avoid seeking medical attention for as long as possible. Another study, this one from Canada, suggests 80% of men will refuse to see a physician until their spouse or partner convinces them to go. But why? We spoke to psychologists and sociologists to understand the reasons men delay. They fall into essentially two categories. First, the practical conscious fears. According to a survey by the Cleveland Clinic, the number one excuse men make is that they are too busy. The second most common excuse, they are, of course, quoted as saying they are afraid of finding out something might be seriously wrong. This fear of bad news, as one Canadian doctor put it, is psychologically paralyzing. And third, a deep-seated fear of the exam itself. Men report dreading the discomfort and embarrassment of procedures like prostate checks, testicular exams, and colonoscopies. One study even found that 3 out of 4 men would rather do household chores than go to the doctor. And, if you are if you're averted to doing chores, that's a big statement. But these individual fears are symptoms of a much deeper cultural disease. Researchers who study this phenomenon have a name for it. They call it hegemonic masculinity. It's a rigid, socially constructed, and often outdated idea of what it is to be a man, and it is killing them. The cultural script is simple, and it is taught from boyhood. Men are supposed to be strong, tough, self-reliant, and stoic. They are taught messages like, take it like a man, boys don't cry, and of course the most famous one, walk it off. Now, sociologists and psychologists have found that men who rigidly internalize these masculinity norms come to view acknowledging pain or seeking medical help as a weakness. In this mindset, visiting a doctor isn't just an inconvenience, it's a threat to their social status, a sign that they are not strong or self-reliant. They operate on the belief that their ailments will simply get better on their own. This learned stoicism creates a profound barrier to preventative health care. Men become so focused on appearing tough that they fail to detect early indicators of severe diseases, including cancer. This is a direct causal link to the mortality gap. This cultural script leads to help seeking avoidance. Avoidance leads to late-stage diagnosis, and late-stage diagnosis leads to preventable deaths, that 4.5-year gap. It is, in many ways, the price of silence. The avoidance of preventative screening is a dangerous one for anyone. But for millions of men, it's the game of genetic Russian roulette. They're walking around with a time bomb written into their DNA, and the culture of silence means they never get the one test that could save them. When we come back, we'll talk about the hidden hereditary risk, such as Lynch syndrome. But as we do that, or before we do that, let's take a look at another campaign video that was released by Movember when it comes to men's health, especially men's mental health and others. So let's take a look at that. My apologies, let me just share that video with you because I think that it is also another excellent video that they put out and one that really drives home the message.
You know, it got to a point where I kind of shut the world out. I didn't talk to anybody.
It's prostate cancer that's gone all over my skeleton.
And there's too many of us dying.
So there's enough of it.
All I thought was to be a man, you had to be strong, you had to be macho.
You need to be a leader in both your voice and your actions. What's in reaches of the communities which are hard to reach. It's about supporting each other through tough times.
Revive is not just a bike shop, but a place of healing for men.
I feel like the change can come through these programs, and I've seen it change lives.
Things that I could only dream about 5 years ago, even 5 years ago, are now reality in my clinic.
It isn't just going to advance my own work, it's going to advance the work of a number of projects here, and that's ultimately going to lead to the advancement of a number of possible new treatments.
I see this as our standard, and I could not go back, and I would not go back to an old-fashioned clinic-based follow-up for well people.
Ask the right questions. So what are the right questions?
I didn't have to check with anyone. I didn't have to ring the doctor. I didn't have to ring you. It was all there.
You know those guys are keeping an eye on you.
Being exposed to research is really what saved my life.
The COVID crisis has changed. It's not going to be slow, but it's coming.
What matters is what we do today.
I stand tall.
I stand tall.
Today. I stand tall.
I stand tall.
For my people.
For my people.
If you live your life for something that's bigger than you, you'll always be a success.
1, 2, 3, let's roll. Best version of us.
Best version of us.
My brother.
For my brother.
My brother.
For my brother.
So again, as you can see, they put out some very effective and very emotional at times videos. And these are not just distributed online, but you'll see them on different screens, whether that is on the small screen, television screen, and elsewhere. It really shows how this whole Movember movement has grown. It actually started with a couple of gentlemen in Australia who were talking and drinking some beers, as many great ideas start over drinking, go figure. But these gentlemen decided to challenge 30 of their friends to grow mustaches to raise awareness. And that first year, they actually raised a very large sum of money, and it turned out to be the largest that was contributed to the charity of their choice at that time. Since then, it's grown into an international movement, and it continues to raise awareness and to support over 1,700 programs around the world when it comes to men's health, research, awareness, and education. Now, of course, we know that we can look at the different ways in which people can reach out and help those in distress. However, there's also a way that you can look and get early intervention and early awareness of your risk for various types of cancer as well. Now, we've just established why men driven by cultural scripts of masculinity often wait until it's too late to see a doctor. Now we're going to explore what exactly is at stake. For many families, cancer is not just bad luck, it's an inheritance. And we're going to talk about something known as Lynch syndrome, which I personally am open about discussing because it's something that my family is very prevalent, or it is very prevalent in my family, as well as other cancers. As our producer Jesse knows, I've recently had surgery myself. I had to have some cancer. You can see these stitches all through here. I had to have some cancer removed from my arm recently. And again, it's all about that early detection that really plays into the difference between a simple surgery or life-changing treatments that could be looking at long-term. Now, this is an essential thing. Now, when we talk about Lynch syndrome, you may know it by its older name, hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer, or HNPCC. Now, it is the most common inherited colorectal cancer syndrome, accounting for 1 in 35 of all colorectal cancer cases, yet it remains dangerously underdiagnosed. It is caused by an inherited mutation or change in one of 5 specific genes: the MLH1, the MSH2, the MSH6, the PMS2, EPCAM. So these are DNA mismatch repair genes. Their job is to be the body's genetic proofreaders. They fix errors when your cells divide. When they're broken, they don't do this. Now, the risks are astronomical. People with Lynch syndrome have a lifetime risk of developing colorectal cancer that can be as high as 80%. Now, it's not just colorectal cancer. Lynch dramatically increases the risk of endometrial, stomach, ovarian, pancreatic, kidney, bladder, and small intestinal cancers. A key red flag for doctors is when these cancers appear before the age of 50. So keep in mind that a lot of people associate certain types of cancer with age. However, with that said, I can tell you from personal familial experience that one of my cousins even passed away from colon cancer the day after his 27th birthday. So again, very, very important to pay attention and to look at the primary ability to get screened in the hereditary cancer programs in your region. This is a very simple DNA test that they do, looking for these specific markers that indicate a positive or negative when it comes to Lynch syndrome. That allows, of course, for early screening, more frequent screening when there are even no symptoms or concerns present besides being positive for Lynch syndrome. It can get the difference between a stage 1 or a precancerous polyp through to, of course, something that hits stage 4 before it starts to show any symptoms or concerns. Now, this is where our two stories collide. In a culture where men are taught to walk it off, where they don't discuss their health, and where their families maintain that silence, the family history in that system fails. A man may never know his father or uncle had colorectal cancer. He never gets tested. The genetic time bomb is passed on to the next generation, unseen. Now, a Canadian guideline is trying to break that cycle of silence. And again, I am a part of the screening program through the Canadian Cancer Program and the BC Cancer Program, the Hereditary Cancer Program at the BC Cancer Centre. So again, they do amazing work. It's very non-invasive, very easy to get checked. And it is as simple as a saliva or blood test. Now, the expert panel of 37 Canadian geneticists, oncologists, and patient representatives has published 18 new recommendations to standardize care. This was co-led by Dr. Raymond Kim of Ontario's Hereditary Cancer Research Network, and the new guideline calls for a major policy shift, and that is universal screening. This means that everyone diagnosed with colorectal or endometrial cancer, the two most common Lynch-associated cancers, would have their tumor automatically tested. The first test, often called the immunohistochemistry or microsatellite instability test, looks for the telltale genetic fingerprints of Lynch syndrome in those cancer cells themselves. If that tumor comes back positive, the patient is then referred to a genetic counselor and or offered a simple blood test to confirm if they have inherited that Lynch mutation. This is a game changer. It's a systemic solution to a cultural problem. It completely bypasses the need for perfect family memory. That man, the one from our last segment, the one who waited too long, and now has colorectal cancer diagnosis, can, through this new universal screening, find out he has Lynch syndrome. That knowledge doesn't just help him. It can help save his entire family, his siblings, and his children, who each have a 50% chance of carrying that same broken gene, and they can be notified. They can then be tested before they even ever get cancer. And if they're positive, they can begin life-saving intensive screening like annual colonoscopies as young as the age of 20. The policy effectively forces the conversation that masculinity and silence prevented. Universal screening for Lynch syndrome is a massive leap forward, but it still requires a cancer diagnosis to start the process. So if you have a family history of cancer or suspected, then that is a sign. Now, what if they could find the cancer before that? What if we could screen for dozens of cancers, not just one with a single blood test? This is not science fiction, ladies and gentlemen. It's called a liquid biopsy, and it's poised to revolutionize medicine. For decades, the biopsy has been the necessary evil, an invasive, often painful, and surgical procedure to extract tissue. A liquid biopsy changes that. It's a simple blood sample. The goal is to find the genetic equivalent of a needle in a haystack, tiny fragments of circulating tumor DNA, or what's referred to as ctDNA, which are shed by cancer cells, sometimes at very early stages, into your bloodstream. Now, this has led to the development of what are called multi-cancer early detection tests, or MCEDs. The promise of this technology is staggering. Today, routine screening is only recommended for 4 types of cancer: breast cancer, cervical, colorectal, and lung cancer. Now, this means approximately 70% of new cancer cases are only detected after a person develops symptoms, often at an advanced stage when survival rates are low. A simulation model published in the peer-reviewed journal Cancer estimated that adding an annual MCED test to standard care could cause a massive stage shift. The model predicted it would lead to a 45% decrease in stage 4 diagnoses. And it would also offer a 10% increase in stage 1 diagnosis when cancer is most treatable. Now, this revolution is happening here in Canada with Dr. Julia Bernier, a researcher at McGill University, is funded by the Canadian Cancer Society to perfect these tests, figuring out how to monitor treatment response in real time from blood alone. William Osler Health System in Ontario has become the first hospital in Canada to offer in-house liquid biopsy testing for cancer care. And in Vancouver, Biomark Diagnostics is developing its own AI-enabled liquid biopsy test, hoping to expand access and to remote and underserved Canadian communities. This technology seems to be the perfect solution to the problem we started with. If men are afraid of uncomfortable and embarrassing exams, What could be simpler than this kinder blood test? It appears to be a 21st century technology solution to a 19th century masculinity problem, but there is a catch. The technology is here. Our healthcare system is not. In September, 200 stakeholders, doctors, researchers, and public health experts gathered at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center to discuss if our system is actually ready for MCEDs. The consensus was that we are not even close. Experts fear that the primary care providers and cancer centers will be overwhelmed by a flood of positive tests, some of which may be false positives, leading to a tidal wave of follow-up scans and procedures. But the most immediate and profound barrier is the price. Right now, these revolutionary MCED tests cost approximately $949, and they are not covered by most health insurance plans. We're on the verge of solving a cultural barrier to men's health, only to immediately create a socioeconomic one. We have created a scenario where, as one recent study warns, only affluent populations can access this potentially life-saving technology. And that's the paradox of men's health in 2025. The Movember movement has successfully identified the crisis, a culture of silence, born from outdated ideas of masculinity. It is leading to preventable deaths. In response, medicine has delivered revolutionary systems. We have new guidelines to catch hereditary killers like Lynch syndrome, using the system to bypass the silence. And we have new technologies like liquid biopsies that can detect cancers in a single drop of blood, a test that bypasses the very fears of discomfort and embarrassment that kept men from getting these tests and screening. But now we're at a new impasse. A 21st century medical miracle is colliding with a 20th century healthcare model. We have the tools to save lives, but we have not yet decided who gets access to it. The challenge then is no longer just telling men to talk. It's about building a system that's ready and willing to listen. That is the important parts of that, ladies and gentlemen. And I thought we'd also take a look at the actual making of that commercial and what was behind the thought of that campaign. So let's take a look at that as we continue on talking about men's health and men's screening and early detection and intervention to create an environment where that 4.5-year gap for lives of men and women is lessened.
Men's mental health it's something that a lot of the crew at LSKD have either been impacted by or know someone who has. So it's something that we're really passionate about trying to make an impact. So hopefully this campaign creates conversation, and we're doing our part to have an impact.
Good. I'm confident.
Look at back. There you go.
When Jordan's taking up 3/4 of the seat.
Oh, huh?
So the idea behind this one is to create a really powerful piece of content coming into November to help spark conversation around men's mental health. It's a cause that's close to a lot of people at LSKD, so we're pretty excited to bring this one to life. We've got the opportunity to create a pretty powerful piece of content, which is cool.
You just have an idea of who you want to, which part, like who you want to be the sad one or the energetic one?
That's one of the reasons why we wanted to jump on the call with you boys.
Ready? It's 4 a.m. Actually, not anymore. 4:39 a.m. And we're shooting a men's mental health campaign.
How'd you go on the bike?
Good. Surprise. Good. I'm confident. I'm like great.
How do you think you'll go with another 100 kilos on the bike?
I'm slightly nervous We're
going to do a quick practice.
Yeah. Okay.
You jump off first.
Sorry. There we go.
I'm going to sit close to you.
That's fine. Oh my god. Oh god. That's embarrassing. Hey. Did you get on that?
Of course.
For the plot. Oh no.
Look, said I need a meal, no less, bruh. I ain't seen it yet, so I might go request you. They been taking shots, need your best now. Seen them all talking with their chest out. Too much going, got to stress now. And they see me winning, told them why you so upset now. I'll shut it down, yeah. I'll shut it down, yeah. I'll shut it down, yeah. I'll shut it down,
Feeling great.
And how do you feel about the meaning behind this? I'm calling it a cinematic art piece.
It's a pretty special time. It's for a great cause, and hopefully you can create more conversation around men's mental health. A lot of us are too afraid to speak to our friends or speak to anyone because we're so brave, and you feel like you've got to be so strong for everyone else. And hopefully this can create more conversations about being vulnerable and talking to someone when you are doing it tough. So.
When I shoot my shot, told them they ain't never bounce. Like the ball on the court, dog, I told them all bounce. They ain't really see what this about. See my life a movie, no, but actually, like,
look at that. There you go.
You're like, been taking up 3/4 of the seat. They've booked a location, we haven't.
They booked this bridge. How do you book the bridge?
Through council, I guess.
Oh wow! Lesson for us: book the bridge.
Or beg for forgiveness.
Running out of time, but we work well under pressure. That's what we do here.
For another hour.
What time did they say?
Well, I think I'm just looking at when
they said an hour ago. About an hour ago. No, we're actually doing really well for time. We're ahead of schedule. So
how many more days?
At least one, maybe two. We've at least done 6 different outfits already.
6 outfits, are you sure?
Yeah. Majority doesn't look stressed, so. Never. I told you, I'm fourth quarter man.
I'll shut it down, look.
We have just wrapped the men's mental health video down here at Southport. It's been a great morning, nice, bright and early. Shot a few different scenes, a lot of different outfits, but yeah, really hoping this video can help a lot of people and start creating conversations around mental health, and especially males. We lose probably way too many males to suicide, so if we can spark a conversation between males, between friends, then we've done our job. So hopefully you enjoy the video, and that's a wrap.
Hey, how you doing, man? See for this run? Yeah. Let's get going. Make some plans tomorrow.
And it goes on to play the video in its entirety, but we've already played that at the beginning of the show tonight, so I think that we'll skip that last part of it. But I think that the message is very clear, that there are so many ways in which we are transitioning to a new era, and that is more conversation about men's health, whether it's colorectal cancers, whether or not it is testicular cancer or others in the realm of cancers, but also when it comes to mental health awareness, we are coming through in a lot of different ways to open that dialogue and conversation. And it's going to be a generational change. There are still people from older generations that may not have that same attitude. They have already been ingrained to think about being stoic, being self-reliant and strong on their own, and seeing getting treatment as some type of a weakness. So again, it is essential that that whole mindset changes. And as this new generation is growing, they are learning this as well. Some might argue that it's gone too far and we've created a society of soft individuals. But I think that when it comes to health and longevity, as well as the health of people around them, you've got to remember that if you are not taking care of yourself, then you are not in a position to look after others to your full potential. So again, looking after yourself first puts you in a better position to look after those around you. When it comes to healthcare and screening, of course, we know that the digit test prostate exam is not a pleasurable one. It's a very embarrassing. It's a very uncomfortable one. But again, these are tests that are changing with the times, and whether that is through different screening, blood tests, DNA tests, and so forth, the options are changing, and that's where I think there has to be also a higher level of awareness and education. I think that as more people understand the changes that are taking place in screening and awareness, I think that we can get that mental block for men to feel more comfortable going to talk to their doctors about the prostate, about the colorectal concerns when it comes to cancers and things like that. So again, it's about dialogue, it's about awareness, education, and of course the new technology that is advancing to make it less invasive. With that said, for those who are positive on Lynch syndrome, or have this familial history or a higher level of risk, when it comes to the colonoscopies, it is something for myself I have to go in about every year to do because of the prevalence and the commonality of the cancers in my family. I go in about once a year to get the colonoscopy done, to have polyps removed, and I've had different cancer treatments or surgeries and that in the past as well. So again, it's all about understanding the heightened risk, but that allows more further screening and being more on top of it that way. And I go in, I have my appointment, I go in, and they basically put me to sleep. I wake up, the process is done, I go home. It's a very simple and straightforward process. It's not one that I am in any discomfort for. Again, I'm put to sleep, I wake up, I go home, essentially in a nutshell, and that's about it. I've never had to deal with, any of the side effects. I've never had to deal with pain, discomfort, or anything afterwards. So again, a lot of the fear is the unknown by men. So I think that by myself talking about it, at least you can understand from the majority of people, that's the same experience they have that I go through, and that is one of simplicity, of just an easy process that is not long lasting. Part of that is the great teams that I have through the BC Cancer Centre, through the Jim Pattison Pavilion at the Surrey Memorial Hospital. Just great teams and great doctors, and unfortunate that way. A lot of people don't have that same team, but again, it is important to still keep up with that testing, keep up with the screening. And again, if there are different insurance companies, for example, in the US, that are not willing to do the early or regular screening, something for them to keep in mind is that it could save millions, and if not billions, in future costs if they are able to intervene early, to catch cancers early and to be able to treat them at an early stage. It saves the insurance programs and the healthcare system, whether it's public, private, and so forth. It can save a lot of money down the road. So the initial outlying of expense could save a lot in future expenses. So again, it's all about looking at that balance sheet and deciding, is it all about immediate profits, which a lot of corporations want to look at because their corporate structure is one that CEOs and other executives, their bonuses and their income is derived or connected directly to the profitability of the company in the short term, not throughout the long term. So that is another concern when it comes to the private care systems and the private care models and so forth. Now, with that said, folks, we are going to wrap up tonight's episode by inviting you to be a part of the conversation. We would like for you to share your thoughts on tonight's stories, as well as our in-depth report on men's health. And we'd like you to share the information with others. So by liking, by subscribing, by sharing this episode with others, we hope that we can play a role in further education, awareness, and of course, intervention and prevention. So once again, we encourage you to speak openly about all of these health issues. When it comes to mental health, folks, it is, again, still one area that men are stubborn to speak out about, one that men think is a weakness to ask for help. But contrary to that, it is important that, especially as the world evolves, so does our mindset, literally and figuratively, when it comes to mental health issues and men. This is something that a lot of people are starting to understand more of when we talk about soldiers and PTSD, law enforcement and their 3 to 4 times likelihood to consider or to act out on suicide attempts. These are things that are of utmost importance that we talk about and try to find solutions for. And when you talk about PTSD and the people who have come from war zones, you can also talk about the civilians, not just the military members, but civilians in those war zones. You can talk about journalists and reporters who cover stories such as that. I've covered stories in war zones. I've seen people die. I've seen body parts separated from the person. I've seen a lot of horrific things in life, and that is a part of why I am very aware of mental health issues. I once suffered from depression and anxiety and didn't realize how much of a hold that it had on my life and the people around me until I actually got help with it. And now I continue, and I'll show you openly is that these are venlafaxine, and I take one of those every day to help keep the moods level. And a lot of people would be embarrassed to admit that. But I think that overall, I think it's more important to talk about it and to let other people know that it is okay to talk about. It is okay to reach out and get help. There are options available. And sometimes the first medical option or medication option to deal with, stress disorders or anxiety or depression, all of those things. Sometimes it's not the first medication or the second one that you try that is the one that's right for you, because each individual and your system is different. However, it is important to stay the course and try to find the one that does work. And I will be honest that when you are on these certain medications, it takes a bit of time for them to get into your system and for them to actually start leveling out and working. And during that first period of time, you can kind of feel a bit nauseous at times. You can kind of feel not yourself, and you can feel a little off. And that is why many people that start medications will be turned off from them. And that is that initial point where they don't feel themselves, where they feel nauseous and other things, and they don't give it that full cycle to get into the system and start balancing out and keep you on a good mental path. So again, that's something to think about. When you talk to people who are on the medications, and if they stop cold turkey or just abruptly stop for any reason, whether that's financial access to those things, it's kind of like taking a 9-volt battery that when we were kids, you'd stick on your tongue and you'd get that shock. And when you quit these cold turkey, then it can cause that in your mind as well, where it feels like you're getting little shocks in your brain. And that is because it is now causing that chemical imbalance in the brain that the medication was helping to regulate. And so you go through a real path of transition there that can be very unpleasant. But again, it is all about following doctor's advice, getting the assistance you need, and just not being too proud to reach out and ask for the help. So again, if you have comments about tonight's episode, we would love to hear from you in the comments section. Like, follow, and subscribe as well. We will be back next Thursday at 8 p.m. here on JESS FM and JESS TV to bring up more information on different subjects and news stories that are of importance to you in Lethbridge and throughout Canada, in addition, of course, to around the world. And lastly, I would like to once again thank our episode sponsor, that's Carey Movers Limited, the family-owned and operated Western Canadian moving company that provides long-distance services throughout Western and Northern Canada. Carey Movers also offers local moving services in the Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley area. You can get rates and quotes online at www.karymovers.com. Yes, that's karymovers.com. And in closing, ladies and gentlemen, in 2 weeks' time, we're actually just over a week from now, I will be in Lethbridge for the Fashion Weekend. Yes, Lethbridge Fashion Weekend is coming on the weekend of the 21st, so we hope to see you there. And by all means, come up and say hello. I will be there getting some video and some photos as well as other coverage from the event, and I hope to see you coming out. You can find information online for the Lethbridge Fashion Weekend coming up again next weekend. We'll see you in Lethbridge for that. Thanks again for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday.